The Object 279 is the big shiny reward for the new space race operation in War Thunder. Armed with a stabilised 130mm cannon, unique highly angled armour, and 4 sets of track, is this new Soviet super heavy tank worth the massive amounts of grinding? Alright lads, today I'm going to be talking about the performance, weapons and playstyle of the Object 279. Starting as always with the basics, this monster is a rank 6 battle rating 8.3 heavy tank located in the Soviet tech tree. To unlock this tank, you'll have to take place in Gaijin's spring event, which is named the Space Race. For more information on this event, I strongly recommend you watch Gaijin's official launch trailer. Like the Makarova Mark I, which was also a reward in a previous event, the Object 279 is classed as an event vehicle, meaning you will receive it fully stocked, and will have to grind out all of the modifications like a regular tech tree vehicle. This means that the Object 279 is not a premium vehicle, and does not get increased reward modifiers. Going on to the rewards, the 279 has a base RP modifier of 2.14, which is dead on average for other vehicles at battle rating 8.3. You can expect an RP modifier of 214% with a free-to-play account, and 428% with a premium account. Additionally, you could purchase a talisman for this vehicle, which would boost the RP modifier up to 642%. The Object 279 is also average when it comes to its silver line modifier. Having a base modifier of 1.5, you'll have a silver line modifier of 150% with a free-to-play account, and 225% with a premium account. If you'd like to know more about the Object 279, and whether it's worth suffering through the awful teammates, ghost shells, and the countless night battles to grind out this event, then stick around for the rest of the video. The Object 279 certainly does live up to its classification as a heavy tank, as this behemoth weighs 60 tons. But surprisingly, the Object's 1000 horsepower engine gives it a respectable power to weight ratio of 16.7 horsepower per ton. This gives the Object pretty damn good acceleration for such a large vehicle. This acceleration, combined with a top speed of 55 km per hour, allows the Object to be one of the most mobile heavy tanks in the game. The tank is also able to reverse at a speed of 18 km per hour, which is certainly better than most other Soviet high tier tanks. However, the Object does have one downside shared by the majority of other Soviet tanks, and that is the lack of neutral steering, meaning this tank cannot traverse on the spot. This issue, combined with the tank's large size, makes navigation of tight urban areas feel a little bit sloppy, as the turning circle of the tank is absolutely huge. But overall, this lack of neutral steering isn't too much of an issue, and I was personally surprised at just how mobile this tank is. With your acceleration and good forward and reverse speeds, you can push, fire and retreat around a corner within seconds. This tank honestly feels like it has the mobility of a medium tank, rather than a super heavy. The armour of the Object 279 is certainly one of its main talking points, but is it actually useful at battle rating 8.3? To test the armour of the Object, we will be using the DM23 APF-SDS round, fired by the Leopard A1A1. Starting as always with the lower frontal plate, you can see it is angled at around 60 degrees and provides between 260 to 300mm of protection against thin ammunition. Moving to the upper frontal plate, you can see that as the angle of the armour increases, the armour protection actually decreases. Also take note that the driver's periscope and hatch is the main frontal weak spot of this tank. As we move out to the cheeks of the hull, the effective armour thickness increases dramatically. Needless to say, when shooting the frontal hull of this tank, aim for a centre of mass shot. Moving to the hull sides, you can see that they are also highly angled. The lower hull sides are angled between 75 and 78 degrees, and ranges in thickness from 325mm at the front of the sides, down to 200mm at the rear of the lower side. The upper side of the hull is only angled at around 70 degrees, meaning the upper side armour is actually weaker than the lower side armour. I would like to point out that the flat armour located near the tracks will not cause any critical damage, and a round will pass straight through this area without hitting any crew or ammunition, as you can see. Shooting here will however take off the tracks of the vehicle. Moving to the front of the turret, you can see as I move the cursor across the turret face, the DM23 round is unable to penetrate anywhere other than the MG port and the cannon breech, which is very impressive. This is kind of made redundant by the fact that the top of the turret, just above the gun breech, is very weak. A well placed shot here will not only take out the gun, but also detonate the ammunition storage in the rear of the turret bustle. This is, however, a fairly small target. The turret side is weaker at the top of the turret and gets thicker the further down you go. Note the extra armour protection for the ready rack at the back of the turret. which the DM23 struggles to penetrate, which should protect this tank from a quick ammo rack. Overall, the armour of the Object 279 is very good in down tiers, but leaves a lot to be desired in equal and up tiered games. Common APFSDS, such as the DM23 round, will simply low pen you if the enemy shoots centre mass. Even the older types of ammunition, such as APDS and HTFS rounds, will still easily penetrate this tank. The armour of the Object 279 is no more valuable in practice than the armour of the T10M, for example. It will protect you from enemies panic firing into well angled parts of your armour, but against a competent opponent, it's just dead weight. It's very nice to have, but your armour can't be relied on in combat. The Object 279 is armed with the M65 130mm cannon, the same as found on the IS-7. It has a maximum gun elevation of 17 degrees, but is really limited by its poor gun depression of only -5 degrees. You can carry 40 rounds in total, with 13 of those rounds being classed as first stage ammunition. Seeing as this is a 130mm gun, you have a rather good fire rate. With a stock crew, you can fire every 11.2 seconds, and with a fully aced crew, that drops down to 8.6 seconds. While your reload will be beaten by many of the tanks armed with the 105mm L7 gun, having such a large caliber gun firing so fast is certainly impressive. For example, the T10M, with its 122mm, has a base reload of 20 seconds, giving the Object 279 a fire rate almost twice as fast as its equally tiered Soviet cousin. A large downside of this vehicle is its rather average turret traverse rate of 12.6 degrees per second with a stock crew, and 18 degrees per second with an ace crew. This slow turret traverse is typical for other Soviet vehicles, but it will get you killed if an enemy appears on your flanks, as you are just unable to swing the gun around fast enough. Apart from the weak turret traverse, the turret also contains a 2-plane gun stabilizer, making the aiming of this tank's gun incredibly smooth, which really does allow you to play this tank as a bit of a brawler, as you can push, shoot and retreat, all without waiting the 2 to 3 seconds for your gun to steady before firing. The Object 279 stock round is the BR-482B armour-piercing capped ballistic cap shell. This travels at a speed of 900 meters per second and is capable of punching through 312mm of armour at 10 meters. And 245mm at 2000 meters. The round also contains 177 grams of TNT filler, which has amazing post-penetration damage effects, especially against early main battle tanks, which are relatively cramped and packed full of ammunition. This kind of shell is weak against highly sloped armour, but seeing as you will only see a maximum battle rating of 9.3, this shouldn't really be an issue. The only other round you get access to is the OF482M high explosive shell. This retains the same travel speed as the APC-BC round and contains 2.65 kilograms of TNT filler, giving it 31mm of high explosive penetration. This round is a little bit useless in my opinion. It could be used against turret rings to get some spicy ammo racks, but the APC-BC round is much better for all opponents in my opinion. You also get a typical rangefinder, which gives you somewhat accurate distance measurements, and this is accompanied by a fairly good 8x optical zoom. Like most other Soviet vehicles at this battle rating, the tank does not get access to thermal optics, something which a lot of other vehicles at a similar battle rating do receive, putting you at a significant disadvantage. You do however get night vision. As well as your main cannon, you have a coaxially mounted 14.5 kp VT machine gun, with 800 rounds in total. This has personally come in handy for me when dealing with speedy little Italians, as it is able to punch through their weak armour. Overall, the gun of the Object 279 is superb in my opinion. It has a very punchy high-pen APC-BC round, packed full of high explosive filler. This tank does find it hard to compete at long range. Your shells are much slower and much harder to lead than the APFSDS rounds found typically at battle rating 8.3. It will also struggle against enemies who are well angled, but as long as you take care to only fire into fairly flat armour parts, there's no tank that you cannot kill. Not even the mighty turret of the Mouse can withstand this 130mm cannon. Once in a game, I would recommend taking between 13 and 15 APC-BC rounds, as this is the best way to reduce the chance of being ammo racked. When I spawn into a game, I will take this tank into a close to medium range engagement area, as opposed to long range sniping. Your low muzzle velocity and APC-BC rounds make long range shots fairly unreliable, especially against opponents actively firing back at you. Just remember, although this tank was built to be a breakthrough tank, in the world of APFSDS and high-pen HTFS rounds, the Object 279 certainly cannot be played as a breakthrough tank. If you try and YOLO rush at the start of a game, some dickhead in a CV90 will one-shot you. I had best results when playing this as an ambush tank, and with your decent mobility you can certainly get yourself into sneaky positions at the start of a game. Wait until your opponents have fired, pop out and blow them to pieces. In terms of tanks to accompany the Object, you are spoilt for choice with the battle rating 8.3 Soviet lineup. You have the Object 906 and BMP-2 as your light tanks, the T62 and T55A as your mediums, your smaller brother the T10M as a heavy, the IT-1 as a tank destroyer, and finally the Shilka as your anti-aircraft vehicle. You are a little let down when it comes to close air support however, with no real multi-role fighter bomber, but I would recommend taking out the IL-28. To conclude, I think the Object 279 is a good tank. It has good mobility, better than the Chieftain Mark III, a British main battle tank at the same battle rating. While its gun has unconventional ammunition for battle rating 8.3, it is still incredibly effective against the early main battle tanks it faces. Tank design focuses on 3 points: mobility, firepower and armoured protection. The Object 279 was designed to be a well-armoured monster, but in War Thunder, its armoured protection is ironically probably its weakest feature. While by no means bad, the armour is easily penetrated by the majority of guns you will face. The Object 279 is fairly unique in the Soviet tech tree. There are other heavy tanks with good armour, but no other Soviet heavy tank has such a fast-firing gun and decent mobility. The rumour at the minute is that this tank will need you to grind out about 60 hours of game time, and to be honest, I wouldn't really say this tank is worth the effort. I do like this tank, and I will be grinding it out myself, but that is purely as I like collecting tanks in this game. Looking at this tank practically, there are other Soviet vehicles of the same battle rating which fit the meta much better. Vehicles like the T62 and BMP2 are by far more useful in a lineup than this tank. As I said, I like this tank, and if you have the time, you should try and grind it out. But currently in the world, when we are all at home, stressed and aggravated, forcing yourself to sit and play War Thunder to grind a slightly above average vehicle probably isn't what we all need right now. So if you find yourself no longer having fun in the game, don't feel like you are going to be missing out if you don't manage to get this vehicle. As always, I hope you found this video useful lads, and thank you very much for watching.